Good morning, everyone. I'm Kevin Allen, joined by my usual broadcast partner, former NHL defenseman Tom Laidlaw, who played 11 seasons for the New York Rangers and Los Angeles Kings. This is, of course, the Laidlaw and Allen Report. We come to you twice a week to talk mostly hockey, sometimes cooking, and sometimes family events and everything else that's going in life. And that's where we're going to start today. I mentioned last week that my wife, we learned right on air that my wife, the test for COVID came back from positive. She is progressing well. She had a couple of really rough days, as those of you who've had it know, can be a little rough. But things have gotten complicated in my life because other family members have tested positive. This was supposed to be the Allen family gathering at the lake house. Everybody came in, but that's not going to happen. That's been called off because we have other people who have tested positive within the family. So today I have my two grandkids because their mother is positive. And my other daughter, who is immunocompromised, I got to get her out of Dodge because she was here and we don't want her catching COVID. So I'll be, when this is done, I'll be getting her to the airport. She tested negative this morning. So that's a good sign. And we can now just get her home.
And how about you? So you're negative?
I was negative on Saturday, but I have actually seen my daughter since then. Oh. So now I'm on the other situation where I got to wait it out here. So let me try to get rid of this. So
how's your wife feel? She's been up there for a couple of days. Your wife was, right?
She was. But this is when you've been immunized, you're the threat of going to the hospital is not there. At least it shouldn't be, and according to everything we know. But she got pretty sick. But she's doing really well today. I mean, she's got some minor symptoms now, but for the most part, she is still testing positive. But that's pretty normal, the doctor said. Apparently, with this test, that the PCP test, or is that right? PCR? Anyway, I may have the acronym wrong. With this, it's so good that it detects even dead COVID cells. So you can test up positive for up to 10 days, and her doctor, through video conference call, said that she felt that she would be good starting today. So we'll take it tomorrow. I'm gonna take the kids up to her because my wife's now concerned that and I've been exposed on multiple levels. So that I shouldn't come up there with the kids, or I shouldn't be with the kids. So so now we're gonna have a handoff. We're trying to sort it out. One of the things I like about good captains in the National Hockey League, when there's ever a gathering, the good captain at the end of the night sorts the players out from those who shouldn't drive and those who can drive. That's what a good captain does. And that's what our family is doing now. We're sorting out who should be with whom based on who is less likely to, end up with,
And your lovely wife is the captain, I'm assuming?
Oh, of course. Yeah, my wife is.
See, that's why you're married. That's why I'm divorced twice and you're married. Yeah.
Yeah. No, for sure. And I always like it. It's one of the running jokes in our family. My wife will make a declarative sentence, and I don't. This is going to make her sound like she's a dictator, and she's not at all. But every once in a while, she'll say, this is what we're going to do. We should do this. And I say in a very joking manner, I mean, a sweet manner, not I'm mad about it manner. It's like, who made you queen? And she always says, you did. And I said, but doesn't that make me the king? And then she looks at me like, no, not really. So I may be the king, but I'm king like Prince Philip was sort of the king. He was married to the queen. But so anyway, that's today's. And, this is not something where, this is a horrible thing. All of us are vaccinated. We'll get through it. It's just a complication of life right now. But anyway, we're dealing with that. But I want to get into hockey because after our last show, Not like I had 15 people, but 2 people said to me they thought you were right on Jonathan Taves. And when I was discussing it with them, and really what it came down to, it's almost for at least for us and them. I'm not sure it's you and I are the same. It's almost politics. Both of those guys I was talking it with are management people, and I grew up pretty strong labor. When you ask me my opinion on player versus management, I tend to lean. I mean, I see both sides, but I tend to lean toward players. I think it's not up to the players to put restrictions on their wages. It's up to management to say no whenever they if they want to say no. And so I tend to believe you should always treat players well, like better, like their family. And when it came down, they basically said the expression that I really hate. It's just business.
Right.
It's just business, they said. Now, I hate that expression, but I also know the reality of it. Yeah. That people make decisions, and basically they said your argument was pro management. I got to do what I got to do, and I don't care how you feel about it. Right. And my argument is you should care how I feel about it because I've served you well. So, and anyway, so I just want to let you know that a couple of my friends thought you were absolutely right. Okay. That they should they don't owe Jonathan Taves anything. They said they just do what they got to do, and if Taves is mad about it, so what? So,
and I think that I do actually agree with your side of it. That I wish management did treat players, especially players like Jonathan Taves, like that. But in this case, I think this is the business side of hockey. There's no question about that.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah, no, but anyway, I thought it was interesting and worth bringing out. And these are 2 of my friends who are really good guys. Like they're not heartless people, but they just thought, sometimes business just gets in the way, and I recognize that. I understand that. So
definitely,
that's the way it goes. And then what I really want to get into is the John Klingberg situation.
Yes.
John Klingberg signed, for those of you who might have missed it because it was a beautiful weekend, John Klingberg signed a 1-year deal. He was looking for 7, and he got a 1-year deal. It's a Taylor Hall situation. And it's interesting because I feel strongly. I wrote a column last week when I said basically we've run out of money. Now, it's a slight exaggeration, but there's no cap space out there. There's none. There's no room for people to move the players they need to move. There's no room to work out deals so that you can get someone else signed. And Nazem Kadri was the player that I was concentrating on. What the problem with Nazem Kadri is, and I mentioned the other day, there are 10 teams that actually have, according to Cap Friendly, enough space to sign him to what he really wants to make. But that's all misleading because some of those teams, as I pointed out, like the Dallas Stars, they got to sign Jason Robertson. So even though they got $9 million, they're going to are we okay there? I keep seeing things pop up on my screen. Okay.
Yeah, we're good here.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm not sure what's happening with that, but some of the other teams have other players they got to get signed as well. So it's misleading that there are 10 teams with 9 million or less. There's or 8 million or more. So it's really misleading. And really, the only teams that are capable of doing that are the teams that really don't want to. And one of those teams that really doesn't want to are the Anaheim Ducks. They're in rebuild. So, but this is why they signed Klingberg. I mean, they haven't said this, but this is my read on it, and I want to get your take on it.
Yeah,
I think they looked at the landscape, and the Ducks are in an interesting spot because they're in rebuild. They've already got some of the players that are important, to their rebuild. They've got Zegras, they've got Mason McTavish is coming up. He's a real good player. They've got some younger players, Jamie Drysdale on defense, who's a real good player. And they also got John Gibson in goal. Like, they're not really worried about goal. They're good. He's not a spring chicken, as my grandmother used to say, but he's not old either. What is he? 28, maybe.
Yeah.
That seem right. So they're in an interesting spot. So I can see Pat Verbeek, who is a Steve Yzerman. I don't want to say he's a disciple because I think those guys were friends and colleagues, and I think Yzerman really trusted him. He was he was like his first lieutenant. So they think a lot alike, and I wouldn't be shocked if Pat Verbeek said to Klingberg and his agent, "Look, I'm not sure where this team is right now. Like, I'm rebuilding, but I may be farther along in the rebuild process. I just took it over. I made some changes. I got some good young players. I've got some players on this team that can play. So what I would like for you to do, if you're willing and really you don't have many options, why don't you come and join us for a year? I'll give you what you deserve probably on a contract, but I'll only give it to you for 1 year. You see what you think about us. I get a chance to look at my team with a really good power play guy in here, and let's see if we can both benefit from this. And who knows, maybe we'll like each other and we'll make this a permanent, then you can get the 8th year, because maybe next year I'll give you 7 years.
Sure. Yeah.
And now you've got 8 years. I think this was a slick move by Verbeek, and I think it's a smart move by Klingberg. I'm assuming he can get some insurance. You tell me that he can sort of protect his career here. Could he do that?
Get disability insurance. You're kind of limited. I don't think he'd get everything that he would have got, but yeah.
No, but I think he can protect himself against catastrophic injury. So
absolutely.
So anyway, I think this is a really good decision, and it wasn't like last year. In the difference when not last year, is it 2 years, 3 years ago when Taylor Hall did that with Buffalo, because Buffalo was not going to be a good team. I don't think Anaheim Ducks are a Stanley Cup contender, but I think they're a little bit better than a rebuild. So I think there is some mystery, not a lot, but some mystery about how good this team can be. And I agree.
I agree, Kevin. I don't like those teams where they just have these young kids growing up in a losing atmosphere all the time. Edmonton went through that for many years there, where they kept getting first overall picks in the draft and just kept on losing. That became the culture there, and they fought their way out of it now. But I like the idea of making your team better. If it feels like these young kids aren't going to lose an opportunity for some ice time because of the signing, I like you. Right, you get better power play. He's a veteran guy. Gibson, I looked up. He's 29 years old, so he's still got lots left. So no, I like to move a lot. I tell you, the one interesting thing I'd like to see is the conversation that the agent had to have with Klingberg, the player. Because they probably went into this free agent period thinking they're going to get that 7-year contract from somebody. He's that level of player. And like you said, there's just no room anymore. So now the agent's got to come back to the player who had probably himself and his family all thinking, okay, this is our nest egg. We're going to get 7 years. We're going to get $8 million, whatever it is that he thought he was going to get. Now he's getting a 1-year contract. So it's a tough conversation to have with the agent. So.
Yeah, well, I think a lot that it depends. In my mind, if I was a player, I'd be wanting, like, how much can I get in insurance? Like, how much protection? Yeah,
right.
Like if it's $30 million, I mean, I don't know what it would be. I mean, I'm not up on my insurance thing.
Yeah,
but
and it's tax-free money too. The if you do have to draw on that insurance money, that you don't pay taxes on that. So let's say he thought he was going to sign roughly a $50 million contract. He'd have to pay taxes on that, depending on what state it is. So let's say you're at $25 million. So he basically want to get a $25 million insurance policy. So I think he could get that. So
yeah. So I mean, it may be less of a risk than we think it is. Anyway, I like this move on both parts. He switched agents. He went with the mainstream. I believe he went with Newport. Did he not?
He switched agents before this contract negotiation?
Yeah, in the last week.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So that means that I didn't realize that. So that former agent probably built him up pretty good, thinking he was going to get that 7-year contract, and all of a sudden it's not there. Oh, wow.
Yeah, I believe that's the case. Can you Google that and we'll get?
And the thing is that too. And the thing is, if they've done things properly, that other agent would have signed a standard player agent contract with the player, and that is enforceable even if he gets fired. So he signed that contract. So I don't know how they work that out. If he's going to pay the agent twice, pay two different agents or what happens there. But that old agent, if he'd
Well,
signed that,
it'll probably be prorated. Wouldn't there be some kind of split?
no, you sign a contract with the player, and you go into a contract negotiation. Whatever that player gets, the agent gets paid that money, even if he's fired. So I don't know how they work that.
So the new agent that negotiates the deal doesn't get anything?
Well, I don't think the Newport would take it on if they're not getting paid. They may.
Yeah. So I don't know. There just doesn't seem to be any logic to that. So.
Well, that is the agreement, though. That's the agreement. There's only one standard player agent contract. This was negotiated in the collective bargaining agreement way back in 0405. And again, that is the agreement. You cannot, once the player and the agent both sign that, the agent gets paid for the next contract he gets. Now, on the next contract, then that old deal between the player and the agent is gone. So that'd be interesting.
So that doesn't seem right. Okay, so let me give you another hypothetical. So Dylan Larkin fired his agent last a few months ago, and went with Pat Brisson, and they're now going to negotiate an 8-year deal.
Right.
So his former agent gets all money for every year for the next 8 years.
No, see, they haven't negotiated that new contract yet. So when Klingberg would have, if the agent did it properly, you just signed a player agent agreement for every contract that is negotiated. So when that old contract that Klingberg had was expired, that means his player agent contract was expired. The agent should have, if he done things properly, he's entering into a new negotiation, so he has the player sign a new player agent agreement. So that's it's being confusing here. So what you're saying is, even though Klingberg wanted to get a new agent, and so the other guy had been negotiating, but nothing got done. Right. Okay, so then he gets a new agent. Yep.
Now Dylan Larkin, what's the difference between Dylan Larkin saying, "Okay, I'm about to go into these negotiations with my this agent, but I've changed my mind. I want a different agent," and so now the old guy doesn't get anything, even though
it depends. If Larkin had signed a player agent agreement for this new upcoming contract with the old agent, then the old agent gets paid. If he has not signed, I'm assuming it looks like Larkin's agreement is up now.
They're in the middle of negotiating now. Right before they entered the negotiations, he switched agents.
Okay. So then probably he then did not sign a standard player agent contract. You're technically not supposed to be able to negotiate a contract unless you've got an agreement signed with the player. That is the technical way it works. So I would assume when Larkin's deal, it looks like, again, I don't know this, it looks like he would have not signed a player agent agreement with the old agent, released him of his duties, and then signed a new agreement with a new agent.
Yeah, but it still seems, I can't imagine if I'm right about that he switched agents, but I believe I am, that this new agent would have taken him on because they were trying to get a 7-year deal.
Right.
So
Newport could take him on saying, okay, we can't get paid. Like, we're not going to charge you again because you got to pay your old agent. So we won't get paid for this 1-year contract that we signed you for.
But they were trying to get a 7-year deal.
That's my point. So now they then sign, once this 1-year contract is done, they will then sign a player agent agreement with Klingberg, and then they'll go out and negotiate a 7-year deal for him. Hopefully. I'm assuming that's the way they're looking at it, because they're saying it's like going out and recruiting a high-end junior player. You don't get paid for that player. You can't, there's nothing to charge for the player to get paid. So you're assuming that down the road, he's going to make money. And that's probably the way they're looking at it with Klingberg. Go ahead.
The problem with that structure is that it incentivizes the new agent not to get the long contract. And, could Klingberg say, you didn't work hard enough to get me a long-term deal, and you got me a 1-year deal.
Well,
the system is flawed.
Well, it doesn't happen very often like that, though. That's rare that happens.
Well, but still, it just happened now, if that's what you're saying.
I get it. But the flip side, you can say, too, okay, listen, you don't have a deal at all right now. Your old agent couldn't get any deal for you. We'll get you a 1-year deal. we know we can get you one year. I hear your point, and I get it. But again, it's one of those deals. I think it just hardly ever happens. And what it does is then it really it clears up the muddiness that was in the past between the agent and the player. So it's just
yeah, and it certainly makes sense, and there's logic to making sure that agents are treated fairly, because you do all the work, you hold on the guy, and then right, because if you're looking at this from the outside looking in, it seems kind of a sorry state of affairs that Dylan Larkin, who's been playing under this other contract, although the other agent's getting paid on that other old contract too.
Old contract,
yeah. So
and then he just said, it isn't necessarily just to be fair to the agent either. It was just the relationship of the past was the wild, wild west. The agents were just doing whatever they wanted to do. Now this clears up. Yeah.
Protects everybody. So yeah. I understand why that has to be in there, but I just, it just seems, like we're going for an 8-year deal, Oh, wait a minute, we're only going to do a 1-year deal because if we do an 8-year deal, I don't get anything.
I'm sure that was part of their motivation, but I think it was also the case that from the players' end, probably saying there's nothing out there. This old agent doesn't get me anything.
I accept your point that they came to him and said, look, we can get you a 1-year deal, and then we'll get you a new deal. Last year, we'll get you insurance for $25 million that'll cover you, and it'll you don't have a care in the world. We got your back, we got you covered. We know what we're doing. Look at our history. We make a lot of deals. We know what we're doing.
And if it's Newport Sports that got him the 1-year deal, I'm assuming they had a relationship with Pat Verbeek too. They may have even represented Pat Verbeek when he was playing. So I'm sure they knew what they could get out there. They probably had talked to all the GMs. The thing with Newport and being so big, they've got relationships with all the general managers, so they know more than the general managers know because they've got so many players around the National Hockey League. So.
Yeah, I'm looking to make sure that we're right on this because his agent.
The other one too, while you're looking, the other one too that's interesting is Jack Eichel, because he fired his agent halfway through a long-term deal or partway through a long-term deal too, and that agent technically, as long as they sign that agreement, he should get paid. So.
Yeah, according to this, he fired his longtime agent, Peter Wallen, and he hired Newport, and this was just several days ago. And
then that right away sensitive. Right.
Yeah, so he'd been testing the market on July 13th. So when it started, Wallen was negotiating the contract. So if he has an agreement, then.
Sometimes agents will roll the dice and not get an agreement signed with their player, which is especially if they've had a real relationship for a long period of time. But again, if that's the case, if he didn't sign an agreement, then Wallen won't get paid anything. So,
yeah. Well, this went down a different path than I thought. All of a sudden, we're talking about that kind of stuff. But I like the deal from both player and I think it's smart. Klingberg's still a very good player. He's not. An over 35 player. He's not trying to prove, everybody knows what John Klingberg is.
Yeah.
The only thing you would.
Yeah. And from the team's end, they've got all those good players that you mentioned, those young players. They're not eating up a big chunk of the cap on a long-term deal and eating up a bunch of ice time for those young players too. They have 1 year, have them come in. Like you said, if it works out great, they could always re-sign them again, and they could sign them to 8 years because they now own his rights. So they won't, but.
And they've got an interesting defense now, if memory serves me correctly. Even though they lost Hampus Landholm, they had to trade him last because he wouldn't resign, or they couldn't get him resigned, whatever. They traded him, and then Josh Manson they traded. And there were some rumors going around that Manson might come back to Anaheim, but he didn't. He stayed in Colorado. But they still got Jamie Drysdale. They got Fowler, who's a really good defenseman, I think. Right. I think Shattenkirk's still there, right?
Yeah.
So they got a decent defense. And Drysdale, we could see him take a step up. Like he could end up being the one of the top pairing guys this year. He's a very talented player, very talented.
Susan Brooks got a little scoop for us here. Rumor the Islanders are going to sign Kadri after they make some space. Interesting.
Yeah, well, I've heard that, but the problem is this is what I wrote about this week, is what teams are finding out. Certainly, Colorado knows this as well. where are you going to trade those players to that you need to move to make space? And really, the only way to do it is to trade. If you need to move multiple players, you got to move them to separate teams. There are 5 other teams that have a little bit under 5, but you can't move $8 million to anybody. There's not enough. So, it's really, really complicated. What I heard was that Lou Lamoriello has an opportunity to move players, or at least one player, but it's not the one he wants. Somebody has a little bit of room, and also there's the division. Some of the teams that have room, the chief one, the Devils. Do you really want to help them if you're the Islanders? So, so it's complicated. But certainly the Islanders are very interested in Gaudreau. There's no question about it. Susan's absolutely right as usual. So
I was actually hanging out with Susan. I was hanging out with Susan on Saturday morning too. By the way, I was at the NHL Booster Club convention. They held that in Tarrytown, New York, and she was there. Her brother Larry Brooks was there, and Molly that writes for the New York Post. Molly Walker was there as well. It was a blast, really good. So all the booster clubs from all around the league had representation there. They were there all week long. They did a whole bunch of events, and then on particularly Saturday and Sunday, they had dinners and presentations. Larry got up and spoke. Both Molly and Larry got up and spoke. And Larry's really good. I never really heard him talk that much before, but spoke very well. Molly's fantastic.
For those of you who don't know who we're talking about, Susan Brooks's brother is Larry Brooks, who writes for the New York Post. Was in the last couple of years honored by the Hockey Hall of Fame with the Elmer Cruz. Yeah, so he is a legitimate Hall of Famer. But I think what a lot of people have forgotten is Larry was on radio. Larry did New Jersey Devils. He was an analyst. And he was very good on radio. Very good. So he's well spoken. He knows his stuff. And I think what separates him from a lot of journalists is he's got conviction and bravado, courage. It's not easy sometimes to write, opinion pieces about players. And Larry is not afraid.
And you know what he told the crowd too? He said that his feeling is, and he's always tried to do this, and if he does write something negative towards a player, even if it's his day off, he feels that he's responsible to get to the rink the next day so the player has the opportunity to confront him. There are a lot of journalists that have that credo. So no, Larry is first reporter. I've known him obviously a long time, and both he and I are past presidents of the Writers Association. So I have nothing but respect for Larry Brooks. I did ask him in front of the crowd too about his relationship about the rumor that he was friends with John Tortorella. And he's snickered about it. He says, no truth to that rumor whatsoever. No, that's right. He's a very talented man to be sure. Barry Shelley, our friend Barry Shelley, asks us, do agents need to be licensed by the league or Players Association, or they state? So the agents have to be registered with the NHL Players Association. That is, I think in some other sports you have to be a lawyer. You do not have to be a lawyer in hockey. If you've committed some crime or stole money or something like that, I think that disqualifies you from being an agent. But it's like a 22-page document. It used to be, I think, around $1,000 a year to be registered as an agent. So it isn't that extensive. You cannot get registered until you have an NHL client. So if you're just a minor league guy or whatever, you don't have to be registered by the Players Association. Yeah, and with regard to whether or not you're a lawyer, I mean, one of the best agents, most well-known, Steve Bartlett, is actually a financial advisor. Yep. He's a licensed financial advisor, and not all that. Some are lawyers. I mean, people forget that Brian Burke started out. He was a Harvard-trained lawyer. He was a minor league player. Then he crossed over and went into management. There are a lot of pathways to becoming an agent, for sure. So, and a lot of now, Claude Lemieux has become a pretty prominent agent. And of course, he's just he's a former player. Yep. So, Who do you think the first
think
former player? Who do you think the first former player was that became an agent?
Well, I'm just thinking back. Mike Barnett was played pro hockey. He didn't play. I played in the Central Hockey League.
Jill Lupien.
Is that who it was?
Yeah, he was already an agent when I became an agent. I think I was probably the second that became an agent. I think then George McPhee was an agent for a brief period of time as well. Took the same path as Brian Burke. Yeah. Became a lawyer, became an agent, then quickly he didn't stay very long as an agent. He got it right. He was an assistant GM in Vancouver. I think he started off. I think. So.
Now, Brian Burke never played in the NHL, but was he an agent before you were? I've lost the. Yeah, he was.
Yes, he was. Yeah. Actually, he was really good because he was working with Vancouver. They were playing against the Kings, and I just retired. And I sat up in the press box with Brian Burke and talked about, or maybe there's a college tournament or something going on. And I sat with Brian, and he was very helpful. He just sat and talked about himself, his opinions and everything, and he was very interesting.
Yeah. No, he was. Brian Burke had some real interesting. One of my all-time favorite stories. I'm not going to name the player, but Brian would go in and talk to the player about and tell you what he's all about before when you're recruiting him. So he had a lot of players at one particular college, and he went in to talk to a guy. The guy was a goalie, and I heard this from numerous players. So the guy went in and they started talking about, and Brian always asked what he did is, what do you plan to do with your signing bonus? And the guy said that he was going to buy a really, really nice car. And I said, well, I have rules that, I only have your percentage of your money that you have to invest. And then, I give you an allotment for a new car, and the car you want exceeds my limit. And the guy said, well, I don't know if you think, who works for who, but, I'm going to buy that car. And Brian talked some more, and they wrapped it up, and we were done. And the guy said, I just really like you. You're a lot of fun. I've talked to the other guys, Brian, and I think you're the guy for me. And he goes, no, that's not how this interview works. He said, you're not the guy for me. So you're going to have to find. Yeah, he did not take that player based on the fact that he didn't want to. And the way he explained it, because I asked him about it, because I had heard it from a player who was that guy's best friend who did end up going with him. And he said, Brian just basically said, if they're, they come to me and I take care of them, and if they're not going to listen to me before we even have them, then, it's just not going to work out. So, and Brian was just confident was going to get enough players. He just felt that, he didn't want guys that, weren't going to listen. And, anyone who knows Brian Burke knows he has a lot of bluster. And, he had his rules. He even had rules for the media. Like, he would always take your calls, but he always wanted you to call him at night after 9 p.m. because he wanted to make sure all of his kids were in bed. And, for story hours, kids were all young then. And so, he'd read to them before they go to bed. He just had, all kinds of rules. Brian did. So, yeah. So Brian was, as everyone knows, is really a fine human being. So
yeah, he's a smooth talker too. I mean that in a good way. He's not like Mr. Joe Slick. He's very personable
and I always tell people too, he sounds always like he's so spontaneous in these one-liners that rolls off. But everything is calculated with Brian. Like, all these one-liners, he's thought about it before he walked up to the podium. He's thought about what he was going to say. He's got it always figured out. I mean, he's a Harvard-trained lawyer. He really was not happy with me, although he respected that I was running. But I once described him as the only tobacco-chewing Harvard-trained lawyer. Because he chewed tobacco from playing hockey, and he called me and he goes, "Could you not write that anymore?" And I said, "Well, why?" He says, "Well, the wife, the widow of a player who died of oral cancer, had called him when he read that, and when she read that, and just said, you got to give up that habit." So I think he has, but I wouldn't swear to it.
I didn't realize he chewed. I didn't realize that.
Oh yeah, he was a big chewer. I mean, we're going way back. This was in the 1980s and
you ever chewed tobacco? You ever chewed tobacco?
No,
I did.
Do I seem like a likely guy to chew tobacco?
No. When I first went up to college at Northern Michigan University, we started chewing the leaf tobacco, so you had a big wad in your cheek, and we'd go. You ever do smelt fishing? You ever do smelt?
I didn't. I've done ice fishing, but yeah.
So smelt fishing is you go at night or at midnight, and the smelt are these tiny little like French fries, and they're going upstream. So you catch them with a big net, and you scoop them up, and everybody sits out there. And we were drinking. I remember drinking Mogan David wine, like MD 2020, like $1 a bottle, chewing tobacco, thinking I was Mr. Joe Cool, and I'm chewing, and I didn't realize I was swallowing the spit from the tobacco. That did not stay well in my stomach. That did not work.
No, it did not. Yeah, I've seen guys I've covered back in the old days. You'd cover college baseball, and the guy would swallow his jaw and just throw up right there on the diamond.
Oh,
yeah,
nasty. Oh, God.
Yeah, no, it's not.
Like you get a little assembly line going with a smelt fish. One guy cuts off the tail, and then they slit it down the gut, and you just run your finger through the guts come out, and you just throw them in the cast iron skillet with some oil in there, and you just fry them up like French fries. Pretty tasty. It's fun. Fun doing it.
Yeah. I like fish, but I don't. When I was a kid, we'd go fishing, and you catch 200 fish, and you clean them, fry them up. Yeah. Now I just have no patience for that. Any of that.
No, I know. Yeah.
I'm just not. I'm just not that at that place in my life anymore.
Yeah.
And when we used to go out, believe it or not, I was the guy that whenever the hook would get swallowed, I'd be the guy that would fish it out. I could. I just had, Dr. Allen, they'd call me, I do surgery, get that hook out, and, throw it out. Yeah, no, it's a true story. Yeah, I was the guy that always could get the hook out.
Yeah, the whole sitting around there waiting for the fish to bite your line, like, geez.
Well, it's fine, in the spring or summer, and it's 6 o'clock in the morning, and you got a cooler full of a beer or beverage, and it's just serene. But I don't get, my wife and I look out our lake house. We like to go up in the winter, and the snow's everywhere, and the ice fishermen are out there. And I'm going like, why? Why sit around and stare at a hole, that you're constantly trying to get the snow away from it, and you got to break up the ice so it doesn't freeze over. Like why? I mean, it's not just, and people say, well, you can still drink. Yeah, but I could drink on my couch if that's what I wanted to do. I can watch a hockey game at 1 o'clock in the afternoon on a Saturday. If that's what I was inclined to do, I don't need to sit outside where it's cold. And so I don't get ice fishing.
Well, I think the athlete formerly known as Ron Duguay, he's now Deputy Duguay up in Alaska there, hanging out with Sarah Palin. He goes ice fishing now. I don't think he ever ice fished in his life, but now he's up there in Alaska. Yeah. Deputy Duguay, that's what we call him now. Deputy, he's going to be with Sarah. With Sarah's running the show up there. She's going to name him Deputy Duguay. He's going to run. He's in charge.
He really is going to become a deputy.
No.
Oh,
but I shouldn't say this. We had an over under how long that relationship was going to last, and he's surpassed it. He's we feel like he's gone. He's just in love.
Well, I remember there was a sexist line, but there are many of us who laughed at it when she was, running for vice president, where one of the politicians said, I think there are many men who would like to go spend a weekend in Las Vegas with Sarah, but we don't want to see her as our vice president. So, she seems very entertaining when she speaks,
We had an event right near the end of the hockey season. Ronald McDonald House had an event, and he spoke glowingly about her. Yes. Yeah.
She was, I believe in fact, I know this is true. She's a former high school basketball player. She was pretty good. I remember reading a story about her. She was an athlete. So, so I don't know. How do we get off on politics?
I know, obviously she's not one of your favorite people.
Well, I don't really have any problem with her, So the thing about it is I'm, certainly focused on my political views, but I'm not one of those people that I don't like someone because they disagree with me politically. It's just not, just not who I am. So people are people. You're going to believe what you believe.
Yeah, that's right. I wish we were all like that, right? A lot of people like the.
Well, yeah, that's part of the problem now is. you can't,
Well, I've spoken to people who just won't talk to their family members because they don't agree on politics. Like,
no, I know. It's just, I don't get it. So I don't get it. I have good friends who are Republicans. I have good friends who are Democrats. I just, kind of all, but it's just sad how we've gotten to this point. So, I mean, there's so much, it's almost hard to read. I read the reports on what went on, with the Pope coming over and apologizing to the Native Americans about what had happened. And I had not known about that. But I read about what happened. I grew up certainly in a Catholic family. I had 2 aunts that were nuns, and they weren't anything like those nuns. So So
Susan, love the cooking show. Thank you, Susan, very much. Susan, have you seen my new videos I've been doing?
No, I haven't. This is new.
Well, yeah. So I've learned, a friend of mine that I used to coach with, this Rich Gabberti, we got back in touch together, and he's gotten into the social media and the motivational speaking and everything. And he showed me to use this app called Splice. So you can take videos and put them all together, very easy to use, and add music to it and everything. So with my cooking show now, instead of just having still pictures, I do put these videos together of each step of the meal and then the final product. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. No, I do watch those shows with my wife. She watches right after yoga every morning. She watches a vegan cooking show or 2, and I watch them with her. And I'm always intrigued by some people have their face on a lot, and other people only show like the food and the chopping. I tend to like the people that we see. I need some personality.
Really?
Okay. So I mean, I did the food. It doesn't have enough star power for me. I need the personality as well.
So I do
anyway,
I do a little bit of both now. I start off with me telling maybe what the menu is, and then I go ahead and prepare the food without my face in it. So,
do you highlight your chopping skill?
I have not yet. I actually get a kick out of that, though. I like doing it. I may start doing that.
I mean, it's almost on every video, and that's how at least this is not a guy that knows anything of what he's talking about in this regard. But I say whether or not the guy or woman has been trained based on how well they chop, because those people who chop like crazy, you're thinking, they've been to cooking school. That's what I think, because they really know what they're doing.
Do you think they speed up the film a little bit when they're doing the chopping? It almost looks like they're doing it so fast that because I know on this splicing you can speed up the film.
Well, they must, because otherwise we'd see blood, so, because the nut. I did see a real fun cooking show. I bet Susan has already watched it. It's with the guy from Alan White from Shameless, and he stars as a chef taking over a Chicago Italian beef restaurant from his dead brother, Jeremy Allen White, I think his name is, and he was on Shameless, and it's called, I think it's Bear, but it's a great chef, and he comes back to run this, kind of small little Italian beef shop. It was really a very good show. But what I really like it is there's a lot of chef talk in there. Like, he refers to everyone working in his kitchen as chef, and he expects response. When he calls out something, he wants you to say yes, chef, or whatever, and that kind of stuff. And it's really, it has a cadence that I like because of all that. It's just got a rhythm to it, and the food's fun. Like, I remember at one point they cooked this risotto and beef, and then they serve it, and it's just kind of on the screen, sitting on someone's table, and I'm thinking, man, that really looks good. Like, I'd really want to eat that. So anyway, cooking is now so big on social media that I think they've hit a home run with this show too. So, Susan, have you seen that show yet? So
she hasn't responded here. Barry Shelley, he even mentioned that my music was pretty good. Thank you, Barry. His best show that he watches is Girl Meets Farm. I haven't watched that. No, that's really good too. She is an Asian woman who now lives on a farm in Minnesota. She's married a farmer. She married a farmer. So she does, so. So,
okay. Well, Susan, that's your kind of show. You need to watch it.
Okay.
You'll,
all right. Good.
So, all right, I got to run. Anyway, I got to get my daughter out of Dodge because there's COVID's going. So
best of luck. Good luck to everything. Good luck to everybody. Hope they're feeling better.
Yeah, and if you want to read what I have to say about hockey, hockeybuzz.com and also DetroitHockeyNow.com.
And if you'd like to listen to the radio version of this show again, you can go to radio.co at 365 Sports. We'll see everybody on Wednesday.